There are few places I want to be in life less than sitting here defending the college football playoff or the college football playoff committee. Okay, they put a championship game in a non-college football venue in Southern California on a Monday in January. These are not exactly people that I am in love with at the moment. These are people that are soon expanding a playoff I don't want to expand. You know my thoughts on all that. That's not what I'm here to talk about. But you guys, not all of you, not nearly all of you, but a vocal minority last night, whether it be in the iJosh or in my DMs or just publicly on Twitter. Some of you get paid to talk about this stuff, by the way. I saw a lot of you last night, and you watched the game start getting out of hand, and then, sadly, yet predictably, you started second-guessing the playoff field. Now, as I've said before, if you've got a problem with the four teams in the playoff the moment the playoff is announced, or up to the moment of the kickoff of the semifinals, and you publicize that, even if I disagree with you, at least I'm okay with it in principle. I can listen to the logic and decide for or against. Here's what you can't do. You can't wait until the games happen and then retroactively use benefit of hindsight. The committee doesn't have hindsight. The committee, believe it or not, does not have the ability to rub the old crystal ball, see what would happen if they put certain teams in and say, we do not want that outcome, so therefore we're not going to put that team in. And before you tell me that what happened last night was predictable and everyone knew it was going to come, half of you saying that said Michigan was going to do the same thing, and they didn't. So no, it's not all predictable. And secondly, forget about the predictability for just a second. I want to talk to you about competition, and I want to talk to you about how I view the playoff selection process, how this actually should happen. So here's been my stance. It's very simple. Very, very simple, very straightforward. Nothing that happens in the playoff changes the criteria about who should make the playoff. Translation, you pick Bama and well, not Bama, that was last year. Nothing, I'm just going to rephrase this because I want to clip it for later. There was a little bit of noise off to the side. Nothing that happens in the playoff should change the criteria for who should have made the playoff. So this year, you got Georgia in there. You got Michigan in there. You had TCU. You had Ohio State. That's your 1 through 4. You look at their resumes. You look at their bodies of work. You don't acknowledge what a point spread says would happen because we just played 12 or in some cases 13 games that showed us what did happen. Everyone had plenty of opportunity to pad and build their resume, and we got what we got. And so then you decide. What you can't do is you can't watch the games play out and then retroactively say, well, I think the number 5 team would have done better. I think the number 6 team would have done better. That's like looking at an honors student who graduates high school, 4.0 GPA, they get all the awards, and then they go get addicted to smack, and they end up living under a bridge somewhere. Do you take the honors away from them? Do you take the certificate away from them? No. They made the grades. What they did happened. It doesn't change it. That was their resume. And the criteria, based on their body of work in the classroom, warranted them getting honors. Then whatever happened afterwards. Maybe they just drop out of college. Maybe there are no substances involved. Maybe they just make some poor decisions. The point is, you don't retroactively change your decision making. The criteria is the criteria. But here's what got a little aggravating to me last night. When 1 or 2 people said Bama would have done better than TCU, I said, okay, ha ha. But then when like 100 people said it, I realized, oh, you guys are serious. You really think Alabama should have been here. The committee didn't keep Alabama out of the playoff. Alabama kept Alabama out of the playoff. You're insane. If you're sitting here right now saying, no. I know TCU's resume was what it was. It should have been Alabama here. 2-loss Alabama, even with the wins being razor thin, should have been Alabama. No, it shouldn't have been. Shouldn't have been at all. Why? Because they didn't deserve to be in. And then I get the point spread argument thrown at me, which, as I always tell you, there are a lot of things about Vegas that I love. I love that we've legalized sports betting in more states. What I hate is casuals now talking sports betting and now talking odds making. Because if you're sitting there telling me who would be favored over who on a neutral field if they played tomorrow and justifying who you think should have retroactively been put in the playoff, you don't understand the theory of competition versus odds making. Odds making and point spreads are not a body of work, guys. They're not a resume. They are a number that would be put on a game if it were played. And sure, it's a half-decent indicator of who the better team is and who isn't, but it's a power rating. Bama, by the way, favored against LSU and lost. What did the point spread mean that day? Bama favored against Tennessee and lost. What did the point spread mean that day? didn't mean anything other than that's what odds makers put on the game going into the. I don't need to explain odds making to you. What I need to tell you is you take care of your business, and then you let the chips fall where they may. You trust your preparation, you play the games, you put together your body of work. They put the 4 right teams in the playoff. They put the 4 right. You know good and well I'd tell you if I thought they didn't. They put the 4 right teams in there, and TCU got obliterated last night. Nothing about what happened last night changes what the criteria and what the resume was on whatever Sunday it was after the SEC championship when they had to make the call. They made the call based on the information at hand. No one knows what's going to happen once you put those teams in there. Here's the other thing about that. If you are of the belief, and I've talked to 2 people who I respect this morning who think this. If you're seriously of the belief that Alabama should have been in because odds makers say they wouldn't have been a 2-touchdown underdog against Georgia, they wouldn't have lost that badly against Georgia. Well, I'm going to ask you this. Is that really the road you want to go down? Do you really believe that's how competition works? Do you really think the committee kept Alabama out instead of Bama keeping Bama out? Because if you believe that, how about this? Toss another Alabama loss in there. Have them be 9-3. What if I told you, ESPN 30 for 30 style, what if I told you a 3-loss Bama still wouldn't drop below number 4 in the odds makers' eyes? There still aren't more than 4 other teams that would be favored over 3-loss Alabama in the odds-making community. So what do we do there? Do we just let certain teams, because of the skill level of their roster, which is heavily baked into odds-making, by the way, do we just let underachieving, ultra-talented teams in based off a default that we care about what odds makers say more than what actually happens on a football field? And then if that's your answer, I ask you, do you think this right here is a piece of paper? You hear it there on the podcast. Do you think that's what this game is played on? Like, you grew up playing this sport. And if you didn't grow up playing this sport, you probably grew up playing sports. At any point when you were in Pee Wee football and you lost, did you go to the parking lot and sip the Capri Sun and eat the orange wedges and get rehydrated and have your mom say, it's okay, you didn't really lose today because you would be favored over them if you played again tomorrow? No, because at the purest form, that's not how competition works. It's not till you get to the higher levels. And the spectacle is big enough that it warrants odds being placed on these games because they're popular enough to be wagered on that you even get into this nonsense about talking about odds making. I'm all for odds making. We talk about gambling on the show. There's a big difference in competition and the outcomes and respecting the outcomes of competition and the spirit of which versus odds making. So no, Alabama shouldn't have been in the playoff. And yes, they would have fared a lot better against Georgia. It's a shame they weren't there. Whose fault is it? It's not my fault. It's not your fault. It's the guys in Tuscaloosa. And for that matter, you could extend that conversation. Ohio State would have fared a lot better. You know how I know? Because they played the game 10 days ago. I thought about Ohio State a lot last night. I thought about Tennessee a lot last night. If Tennessee would have taken care of their business against South Carolina, if Tennessee would have been just a 1-loss team, they would have been in the playoff in all likelihood. I don't know what would have happened from there. I know that team wouldn't have been any fun to deal with. I saw what Joe Milton even looked like against Clemson. I don't think they would have been any fun to deal with. The point is, you got what you got. And I think you got the right 4. And I'm not going to sit there and change my mind after the fact with the benefit of a hindsight that no playoff committee member has. And that is the first and last time that I will spend this much time defending that group of people on this program.
Thanks for watching, guys. Don't leave yet. Don't leave yet. Make sure you like the video and please subscribe to the channel. Not just for me, that's how we keep this entire thing free.